together for what, about you guys, about a year and a half now already.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
We have, and we just keep, coming up with new books. And it seemed like developing our intuition was the next step. It's such a core competency for spirituality and transformation.
Totally. That's it.
And so I liked your book because we actually use it at University of Santa Monica.
Oh, yeah.
Because
No,
it
they've
has
used it. Yeah, I know.
hands-on, because it hits all those hands-on. A lot of them don't have that.
Right.
So I
right.
really like all the hands-on activities in there.
Yeah. No, the coaching program used it a lot. And actually, it's used in a lot of programs. Even I went to South Africa and it was used in their graduate school of business or something in Johannesburg. So I was like,
Wow.
okay.
Oh, that's interesting, isn't
Yeah.
it? Wow.
Yeah.
Well, we're really happy. Cynthia, did you want me to, are you going to be okay with me to change anything?
No,
You're
it's all
okay.
good.
Okay,
Yeah,
good.
it's all good.
Okay, good. Yeah, so let me, let's see, am I supposed to waiting room, admit, okay.
Thank you, Penny, for being here.
Oh, yeah, it's my pleasure.
Yeah, we really
Yeah.
appreciate it.
Oh,
It's
yeah,
really nice
no.
of you. Really
Oh,
nice of you.
No, it's
Actually, we thought we'd be done with the book when I originally spoke with you.
No.
And we ended up only doing a half a chapter each week because it is so rich and deep that
Right.
we never have time to discuss a whole chapter.
Yeah.
And so we've been doing it half, and that is, even that.
That's good though. I mean, I get emails from people all the time that say they've read any of my books 3 times and now they're starting to get it. It's because
Right.
my theory was I didn't want to write a whole bunch of books on one subject. I just really wanted to get the gist of it all in one. And then the next books, it's always been about 3 years in between my books. It's like I get another download and that's like the next segment in the transformation story, like what comes next.
Oh, I'm glad you said that, because what we'll focus on for maybe the first hour are questions that we all have about the book itself.
Yeah.
And then I thought maybe we could spend about 30 minutes just on some of that newer research and, your newer books and frequency and some of that to get us up to speed on what's been happening since this book.
Yeah.
So does that sound good?
It's all overlaps and ties
figured it
together
would.
and stuff.
I figured it all does. That's right.
Mhm.
Well, we've just been having so much fun on this journey, and it's interesting because I notice differences, but they're usually subtle differences. It's not like it's these huge differences, but absolutely much more intuitive than when we started this book. How about everyone else here? Yeah.
Yeah. So
I feel like it's a.
Yeah, go ahead.
No, you go ahead, Penny.
I was just, asking if a lot of the information has integrated into your life so that you're doing things a little differently or sensing things differently. That's all.
Yeah, it has in my life.
Okay.
And I think it has, and we can share more. Cynthia.
Yeah, I agree with Diane. And also, Penny, I think it's just about becoming aware.
It is.
Like we get these little nudges,
Boy, is
these
it.
little feelings. And we just think it's chatter. And I notice that I am sometimes, of course, if you get the feeling so strongly that you feel like, oh, I should check this out. But it can be something, just a sense like, go do your wash before you go do this.
Yes.
And so I find, so I'm paying attention.
Yeah. So much of intuition is very mundane.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Because, we're going along and part of it is just learning to navigate more smoothly through the day. And I think I always say it's all about noticing what you're noticing. It's really paying attention to how I think we are the soul, but how that part of us is trying to get through to the personality part of us to help us just be more joyful and more efficient and and see more and be involved in more in the world, and so there are all these little subtle ways to do that.
That's for sure. So before we dig into this, let's start with an official opening. I've lit my candle to allow spirit into the space and just create a real beautiful sacred space for allow spirit to flow through each of us. Who would like to start with an opening? Just a little opening. Use your intuition and a little opening of any kind. short. Stephanie.
Thank you. Oh, Father, Mother, God, and our souls within, open our hearts, open our minds, and hold us all together in a sacred circle. Amen.
Oh, beautiful. Thank you
Very-
so much, Stephanie.
Very nice.
So we have our space here. I have several questions that I had sent you previously, and then Dinah gave you some, but who here would like to start and lead off with a question? John Claude is also joining us right now.
Okay.
Oh, good.
I'll start.
Good.
So I just read the section on dreams. Is that the right book? Am I talking about the right book?
You know,
About
I can't
intuition and
remember what's
dreams?
in each. Is there dreams in here?
That's
The
chapter
intuitive
7.
way.
7.
Chapter 7.
Yeah, chapter
Okay.
7.
Oh, harnessing dreams and imagination. Got it. Yeah.
Yeah, it was in chapter 7. And so I've been trying to pay attention to my dreams. Can you give me any insight on how I can really sort of, I don't know, interpret them or listen to them or help them guide me without thinking too hard about that?
Yeah. Well, my thought is that all dreams are real. That when you go to sleep at night, you forget your physical reality and you remember your other realities, you know, the non-physical zones. And I wrote a whole book called Be the Dreamer, Not the Dream, which is kind of like the intuitive way, but just about dreams. But what I talk about in there is that we go out through the dream zones, which would be the same as kind of like the different energy bodies that we have. You know, you have your physical body, you have your energy body, emotional body, mental body, causal body. And in each of those zones, especially the emotional and mental, I think there's like a lower emotional realm and a higher emotional, and a lower mental and a higher mental. So in the lower emotional, that's kind of like the astral plane, where often negative emotion, you know, upsetting kinds of things are stored. And if you dream at that level, you'll have, you know, crazy dreams, you know, of like tornadoes or rushing down a river, you know, or something. But the higher emotional is much more about just pure electromagnetic energy and love and desire and higher things where you're feeling higher kinds of emotion. Then the lower mental is more where you have fixed ideas and beliefs, where your thoughts don't move very much. They're very calcified. And at those levels, like for instance, I used to dream about flying through skyscrapers, like in New York. Well, to me, that's a symbol of fixed mental structures because they're sticking up into a high level of the mind, right, in the air element, but they're rigid, you know. So there's that fixed area, but then the higher mental is about inspiration, intuition, you know, that kind of revelation and things that are more spiritual in nature. Okay.
Huh.
And
So last night I had a dream of running a hummingbird rescue organization.
That's great. Well, you know, hummingbirds and dragonflies and so forth, they're often symbols of spiritual beings and, you know, spiritual messages even, you know, like birds are often spiritual messengers. And so it may be that, you know, you were thinking about really helping protect some of that kind of energy, you know. So I guess what I'm trying to say is that, first of all, I think it's important to see what zone you were in. You know, what level of yourself were you going into to explore ideas, concepts, or whatever. And I don't think there are any bad dreams. I think everything is about your own process of growth and evolution. If it seems negative, it's probably something you're trying to clear that you need some clarity about, right? Or an old kind of karma or a past life where you died in, and never got to process it or something. Nightmares are often that sort of thing. Um, but it's always going to be showing you something about who you are really, what kind of work you're doing in the other realms, because we do our work here in the physical realm, but we also do other things at night or when we sleep. Like I used to go into hospitals a lot and work on people in my dreams, or go to big conferences up in the mountains with all kinds of people, and that those are collective consciousness gatherings. They're all real at a certain level. Does this make sense?
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. So partly you can start to sense what you're doing at night, what you're working on, and it really helps to bring it back in the morning by recording something, and then taking a morning to, sort of set your goals for the day. Like how do you want to be today? What things did you not finish yesterday that you want to complete? And you bring that through the day, and at the end of the day you do your daily review, or your review before you go to bed, and say, how did I do? Well, then for tonight, what I'd like to do in my dreams is work on this.
Oh, yeah.
And then we
Mhm.
get a kind of a circuit of
Mhm.
like a 24-hour consciousness, which,
Cool.
we actually are conscious all the time.
Mhm.
There's, you know, I remember years ago, I went down to Ojai, California, and I saw Krishnamurti right before he died. He was out in the apple orchard, and he said, I just remember this. He said, the only death is ego. And I really thought, well, that is so true, and I think that everything is real. All dream levels are real. So does that help answer that, or any more thoughts or questions
Definitely.
about that?
Yeah, thank you. And it gave me a little thing to do. I'll kind of set my intention before I go to bed and
Yeah.
see what bubbles up.
Yeah.
Thank you.
That's a great idea because we're asleep a big chunk of our lives. So to take advantage of that time
Right.
to
Exactly.
work on our consciousness is really good. I had never done that before,
Yeah,
but that's a great intention before going to sleep. And then,
it is.
jotting down some notes in the morning and observing and
Right.
looking at the patterns that have occurred. So thank you
Right.
for sharing that. That's really valuable. So
Yeah.
speaking of the death of ego, we talk about ego a lot, of
That's right.
course, and we know
Yeah.
that ego serves us in many ways. Ego gets a bad rap, I know, in spirituality, but how do you differentiate between soul and ego messages? Because ego can be very tricky.
Well, I have maybe a slightly different definition of ego than what maybe you're talking about, because to me, ego comes from the left brain, and the left brain by its nature is separated from the right brain and the totality. It needs to be, in order to be the observer, so that it can define and describe and make meanings. In fact, I think Terence McKenna defined it once as um, the ability to interrupt the right brain, because if you couldn't have a focus within the right brain, you couldn't know anything, because the right brain is, you're all immersed in the unified field. You know everything at once, but you don't consciously know it. So the left brain, excuse me, interrupts the right brain so that you can know something.
Okay.
And that's a good function. But
It
if you
is.
start living in your left brain and being afraid of change and having to live by rules and definitions, and are afraid to open your mind to new ideas, for instance, well, then you start identifying yourself as that kind of perception, and that becomes ego.
Oh,
When
excellent.
you identify with the kind of the negative part of the left brain, and you forget about your right brain, you forget about the heart, you forget about your personal field is conscious, right? And you're only in that little kind of sense of self, and you feel separate from the rest of the world, right? Because The
Yeah,
left brain is
excellent.
separate. It is
Mhm.
separate, and that's part of its identity. And if you identify with it, you feel separate. Then you get stuff like narcissism, where you've got to have the outer world agree with you. And if it doesn't, you go ballistic and you try to manipulate everybody, and you can't be weak or you'll die. like, so when we experience ego death, which I think a lot of us are experiencing now, that is the um, rebalancing of the brain where the ego is not the boss anymore. It's the implementer. The right brain is the opening for the soul to come through the personality and bring through information, ideas, whatever's necessary that's just right, not right or wrong. It's just right for each moment, and it's on purpose for you. Um, and
No, that
so,
makes sense. That's
yeah.
exactly, no, that
So,
really clarified it. Thank
and
you
so
for
the
that.
difference in listening is that you
Yeah.
can start to hear the ego voice because it always says should. It's kind of walking the perimeter of the territory, making sure nothing invades, and it maintains everything the way it's previously defined it. And it's in the past, basically. Whereas the soul consciousness always says, I'm interested in, I enjoy, I like, I love, and it's in the present moment all the time. It does not have fear. The ego has a lot of fear because it feels separate. But the soul is not separate, and it doesn't even know what fear is. It doesn't even compute. And I don't think the soul evolves. I think our consciousness here evolves to go back to understand how the soul functions. So we're fine at our soul level, but we're having an earthly experience where we involve and come down into matter, and then we evolve and go back home again to spirit, right?
That's a
So,
really good explanation. Yeah,
yeah.
that clarifies. Does anyone else have anything? What's the next question? I know you have a lot.
That's that in and of itself is going to leave me something to think about for a while. It's
Yeah.
terrific.
Yeah. Yeah. But I mean, you can feel this is where you use your intuition actually. Sense the difference between when the ego's talking and when the soul is talking. And one feels just right. It feels like a child picking up a new color crayon to do something on its drawing. It's just like it's fun. The ego, it's always contracted somehow, and you can feel it. And these are often thoughts that you just don't need to have. If you can start to recognize them, you can just, discount them and say, yeah, not right now. This is too boring. Like I'd rather think something better quality thoughts.
Excellent, Penny. Thank you so
So,
much for explaining that. Just, I think Kathy had her hand raised.
okay.
Yeah, this maybe is, not too far off what we're talking about. The only real good question I wrote down was, does being intuitive, is that the same as changing to the God's eye view that you talked about in chapter 2?
Yeah, I like that. I think so. I think it's the um, choice to be soul, to be the soul. I don't have a soul. I am the soul, and I am here right now. It's not out there in heaven somewhere that I have to cross this empty gap to get to it and then get it and bring it down. No, it's already what I am and what I've always been. So when you feel that, then that God's eye view is that sense of um, really unconditional love and acceptance. At the same time, we do know that we're here in the physical world, and many people are not aware of this yet, and that we have to take that into consideration and not expect too much too early, but also know who they are at the core, but let them show you how ready they are, I guess. Do you know what I mean? It's don't judge them, but treat them at a level where they don't feel threatened. you know. Um, and then they'll open up into themselves, I think, more and more. Um, and then we can have more playmates to do stuff with.
Oh, good. I need more playmates. John Claude had his hand raised. Thank you very much, Penny.
Sure. Hi,
Hi,
Jean-Claude.
Penny. Hi, Penny. I have a couple of questions. I've done some study with hot math.
Yes, yes,
Okay, because they also talk about the heart having its own intelligence.
right.
When you talk about the right part of the brain, are you saying that is synonymous to the heart consciousness? Because it seems like the heart has that ability of not being able to um, doesn't discern the same way the left brain does, and it
Yeah.
has that. So I see a lot of overlap between what they talk about the heart consciousness and the right brain.
Yeah. What I'm getting now is that they're not exactly synonymous, but they're very strongly related. I feel like the right brain is kind of like a doorway to the unified field. It allows, if you're in the right brain consciousness, you feel everything all at once and all the interconnections, the microcosm, macrocosm, are the same thing. It's the holographic perception, where every little thing is every big thing and everything contains everything else. And it's huge,
Okay.
right? Where the heart feels to me like what do they call it? The hierogamus, the place of the divine marriage of soul and personality. It's where we have the revelation of soul. Oh, ha ha, I am the soul.
Mm-hmm.
Now I remember how things work in spirit. I understand the universal principles of how spirit functions.
Mm-hmm.
What a relief, and that sense of being able to become unified and integrate opposite things into oneness. But I think the right brain is like a big opening beyond that actually takes you into that higher realm.
Yeah, I love that answer because it just leads to my next question.
Mhm.
But so that what you just said about the integration that the right brain has with everything within the expansiveness, it kind of says that we're not an individual. We belong to everything. Everything is us.
Mhm. Yes.
And where do you see us, rather than coming from an individual consciousness, coming as a collective consciousness?
Right.
Because that's who we are. It's not about our individual journey.
Right.
It's about the collective. How do you see that play in your way of looking?
That's a really, really good question, because I think as the frequency on the planet is increasing, which it is continually, we are moving beyond just seeing ourselves as separate individuals and starting to understand our group nature, and the collective consciousness, or finding soul groups, that are on the same wavelength, So I think it exists simultaneously, individual and collective. It's just a matter of frequency, the frequency of how you're perceiving, or the filter you're perceiving through. So as the frequency comes down closer to physical, three-dimensional reality, you see individuality.
Right.
And you see yourself as a body separate from other bodies, and then you think your soul is yours, like an individual thing,
Right.
separate from other souls. But as you expand your consciousness and include more in your reality bubble, you start to feel how interconnected you are with other people. You have lots of overlaps.
Yeah.
You could almost be each other in certain cases, right? And then you start to understand, oh, wait, I'm a soul, but it's a really big situation. It's not a thing, it's like a kind of pool of knowledge or energy.
Mm-hmm.
And then as you keep going and include more and more and more, oh my goodness, you're getting into really high states of enlightenment, beyond consciousness.
You see this as part of the solution for what we need in the future, because the individual pursuit has never worked.
Well, it does, because it's part of the whole experiment of learning how to work with three-dimensional reality to be a mini creator. we've got to come in here to be able to understand how we can work with our consciousness to create reality, which is really a cool experiment, you know. And we're still, I always think of us as kind of reverse icebergs, you know, like coming down like this, and the little point is our individuality, but most of us is still out in spirit, interconnected with everything, and we're just channeling this little point down here, you know. So we're all of it, but we're having an experience right now with a very specific kind of focus.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, I understand that particularity of a person. But this consciousness I'm talking about, like you said, coming from there where we're everything,
Yeah.
then we don't have, you know, we deal with the particularity, but it's not become the end all and the end in all,
Right.
rather than be from this collective feel.
Well,
That, you know, we don't have to deal with so much of that. We accept that particularity, but doesn't become the all income. It becomes part of the cell of the organism.
well, I think we start to have a very compassionate view about our humanity, and that we are having an incredible privileged experience here to be able to come down and have this kind of experience, you know. And down, I mean in frequency. I think that because the frequency on the planet is accelerating, we are moving into levels of collective consciousness, but we're not giving up our individual consciousness. It's just like we've been in the left brain for a while. Now we're developing the right brain, but we're not giving up the left brain. It's still part of us and necessary. So we're having yin yang balance, right? It's all going to be a both and reality, not an either or reality. And so I think you'll see that a lot of new developments in the world are going to be about collective consciousness and soul, and groups that are coming out of the same vibration. And then those groups will find other groups that are on their wavelength. And then we're going to have rapid solution to global problems where it's not individuals fighting over ego.
Yeah. That's what it seems like to me as well.
Yeah.
Thank you so much.
That was really good, Penny. And Stephanie's had her hand raised.
Okay.
Hi, I'm wanting some clarification. You said that as we are, that we're points on the, on a reverse iceberg. And you also said that our journey here on Earth, or at least what I heard, is our journey here on Earth is to be a mini creator. Therefore, we have to have the 3D. It's like we chose to come and have a 3D experience.
Mm-hmm.
So those of us who have incarnated now, are we in that group of people? Are those of us, do we have the choice to raise up, to raise up and experience both the 3D consciousness, which is what we've been stuck in for what, 2,000, you know, 4,000, 5,000 years ever. But do we have, are we at this point where we're beginning to meld maybe not consciousness, but what's dimensions, you know, and so that this group, our group, you know, our soul group is actually going to be experiencing what it feels like to not be 3D anymore, but to be multidimensional at a given moment.
Yeah,
Is that
you're on, you've got it. And I think what we're already starting to experience as we start to have this bleed through of, you know, higher frequency realities and non-physical realities with the physical. For instance, you know, when you're centered and running your soul vibration, or what I call your home frequency, things start to happen much more instantaneously now. Like there's a lot more incidents of instantaneous healing because spirit is inside matter. The soul is inside the body as the personality. It's not separate. We are really starting to experience that these things are not separate, you know? And so when it's all at once in the present moment, then the physical world can start to operate like the spiritual reality, right? The spiritual starts to influence the physical, raises up the frequency of the physical, and things start to happen smoothly without friction. You don't have snags, you don't have fear. And that's what my book Transparency is all about. It's like when you get clear and the soul comes through, you see through people, you see through problems, you see exactly what needs to happen. And it's not about, you don't have to really feel vulnerable anymore, because you know what's to be vulnerable about. So yes, we are going to have a combination of being in three-dimensional reality, but the kind of vibration of form is going to go up a level so that it's very malleable. Like we can manifest or materialize and dematerialize things and have our reality shape the way we really want it to, according to our consciousness, you know, and pretty rapidly. You're probably already noticing that there are repercussions to negative thought in your life, right? Kind of fast.
Most people.
Right. You know, you gossip about somebody and somebody gossips about you. I mean, it's like right away, you know. So I think that's happening. Yeah.
Okay. Anyone else have any specific questions? Cynthia and then Howard.
Oh, Howard, you can go before me.
Oh, you can go.
Go ahead, Howard.
Well, thanks, Penny. I'm wondering if you could share a little bit about how to deal with the resistances that our body throws at us as we're trying to evolve in our consciousness.
Like what?
Well, just as we, it's like I'll have moments of improved consciousness, pretty good moments, but then I'll go, you know, I'll fall back into kind of my, you know, not bad thinking, but like not helpful thinking.
Right. Okay. So this is, I think, a symptom of what I've been calling the bridge time. You know, we're in between the information age and the intuition age, you know, where we're still in the left brain operating. Oh, it's a damn thing. Every time I move this camera, let me get it back in focus.
Well, this was a question I was going to ask. Someone asked me, so this is considered the bridge time.
Yeah. And I'm sorry, I'm out of focus. It should adjust itself in a minute, or else I'm just fading. I don't know. No, we're still programmed for the left brain and all the negative thinking, you know, and yet we're learning how to feel the new way and the soul taking over. And we like that. But our old programming says, yeah, but it was always this way, remember? And then you go back and prove that to yourself again. And then you go, no, that's not the way it is. It's really this way. So we're in a process of reprogramming our subconscious and conscious mind. Maybe I need another light. I don't know. There we go.
Yeah.
You know, and so it's not that your body's really tricking you or anything. It's just the old programming is the instructions that were given through the subconscious that you grew up with that never even thought about. And now you're thinking about it and trying to not put attention on it and let it fade out and put attention on the new way. But I think sometimes it takes at least 3 times to keep telling your body, no, we're not doing it that way anymore. You know, now this is the truth. This is the way we're living. This is the feeling I want to have. And then they'll go, okay. And then in a week you'll go, but remember, right? Yeah. And so we just have to be consistent. Keep centering, keep going back to the truth, this is the way you want to feel, make your choice. Yeah, I call it strike the tuning fork of the frequency that you like vibrating at.
Okay.
And just do it over and over until it saturates your body and your field.
Mhm.
And
Okay.
that's, I think heart math calls that coherence, doesn't it? Something like that.
Mhm.
Okay.
Yeah,
Yeah,
right.
but it does
Thank you.
take practice.
it
So that's
does.
good to know, to
Yeah.
be persistent and
But
continually practice. I keep saying it's like muscles that you have to exercise. You know,
right,
the intuition, it's just
right.
like you just can't let it go. So
And
that's
I
great.
think you also have to be a bit selfish to say, I don't want to have it, my reality be this way anymore. I want it the way I want it, you know, and say, not the
And
way everybody else says it is.
that would be an old left brain thinking that that's
Yeah.
selfish, because I would say that's a self-honoring choice to honor that part of you that wants to follow the soul.
Exactly.
Very
That's a good way to
self-honoring.
put it. Good way to put it.
Cynthia,
Yes, well, Penny, I love everything that you have been saying, and it's
Okay.
exciting to know that we are moving towards a new way of
Oh,
being
yeah.
and thinking.
Very fast.
And on a very practical level, for intuition, for myself, I do my best to honor my intuition and hear my intuition to guide me to make the highest and best choices for myself and for my world, whoever, you know, whatever's involved in my world, to
Yeah.
do the highest and best. And I have found that when I am very emotionally invested in a situation that I am trying to do my highest and best for, it's very hard for me to discern my intuition because those emotions get in the way. And I feel that the more we awaken to our own intuition, the better we can live our own lives and be of service to the world. So
Mhm.
if there's this disconnect when we're emotionally invested in a particular situation or in a question, how do we bypass that emotional investment to be able to really understand what is the best thing to do going forward?
Yeah. I think that a lot of our emotion, you know, not, I don't mean joy or just, you know, states of
Yeah.
ecstasy and bliss
Yeah.
and joy, but where you are upset that somebody's suffering or that, you know, that you want something to come out a certain way. It's about control.
Mhm.
And that is generated by the ego again. So certain emotions, if you can start to sense them, that you have to have it be a certain way, and there's that tension in there about it, stop a minute, feel where it is in your body, and remember your ego is trying to stay in control of something and have it be the way it wants it to be so that you'll be safe, or you know, you want somebody else to feel better so you don't have to feel bad, you know. There's always a reason underneath it. So if you can get into it and see that what's causing that emotion in the first place, and that maybe you can let the other person have their own reality and it's none of your business, but you can love them, right? But you don't have to save them, for instance.
Mhm.
Or the dread of like losing a job or not getting, you know, a promotion. Well, if you don't get it, guess what? You've got open space that your soul wants to fill with a better thing,
Mhm.
right? It's the old controlling urge is just keeping you from evolving, right? And so if just see if you can see through it, let it go, get back on center, calm, and then see what you know. Every time.
Okay. Thank you.
Yeah.
anyone else have any other ones?
These are great questions.
I have some
Really?
more, but I want to give everyone a chance because Dinah had given me some as well. So
Okay.
she couldn't be here. So
Sure.
Stephanie.
Hi again. This is I think I'm asking for permission here. I think that's what I'm doing. I find that when I'm in that state where Cynthia is talking about, where I'm in a quandary, and also I am a lazy intuitive. I spend a whole lot of time doubting what I know. And so what I have found, and what I'm seeing is, if it's okay, is I use I use the yes, no, do this, don't do this. And and so I'm feeling guilty because, this is lazy.
But do you trust even that?
Oh, I do.
Okay.
Well, no, I do, because first of all, I always ask, are you willing to answer a question?
Mhm.
And even if it isn't true, I've turned over my trust in this moment to my little Merkaba here.
Mm-hmm.
So in that, I've said, okay, no, this is your decision. And I have gone so far as to think to myself, well, I could be making this, or maybe not. But I've decided that I've put my intuition here.
Mm-hmm.
And so now it's like, okay, this is it. So is that?
Yeah. Well, I think I know what you want to ask, but here's what I want to say. And that is that who's making the Merkaba move to give you your answers? You
Well,
are.
I'm holding it.
I don't know who's making that noise.
I think it's
like
Marcia. Maybe if she could
wind.
mute herself.
Marcia, you want to go on mute? And just raise your hand if you want to ask something.
Okay. So Stephanie, it is your energy of your soul that is causing the vibrations to give you an answer.
Yes.
What if instead you just got quiet and asked your inner perceiver, that inner part of your own self, that's like some people call it the Holy Spirit, I don't know, your inner voice, but it is that part that bridges the soul into your personality. But if you ask that inner perceiver, can I trust you to give me a yes or no answer? And I will trust you, and make an agreement with that, so that you ask a question and you get yes or no.
Without the Merkaba.
Without it. Same deal, just without the physical thingamajig. Then you can ask, what do I need to know about blah, blah, blah? And get quiet, and you'll get some kind of an answer. And it's even easier if you do a little direct writing and allow that stream of insight to just come in word by word by word, and just write it down.
I'm going to try that.
But it's all coming from you. It's all coming from you. And you are connected to higher sources of wisdom, and you are part of that higher wisdom. So you might as well decide to trust yourself.
Well, that is the bottom line, isn't it?
Right.
Absolutely the bottom line. So
Right.
thank you. I
Right.
will. Okay.
Once you do, the more you do, the better the answers are, the more accurate the answers are, and then the better questions you'll start asking as well.
So it takes practice as well.
Right. And I think often the soul gives us the urge to ask a question because it wants the answer to come through. Right? It's already got the answer it wants you to know about, but it makes you ask a question in order to get the answer.
So is that stream of conscious writing even better than just sitting there thinking about it and waiting for an answer? Is there something about actually writing that is a little bit more impactful?
Yeah, it makes it real for the body.
That's what I thought.
Yep. And then once the body gets it, then it feels very real. Yeah.
So I knew there was something in that, actually adding that extra touch of
Well, it's like a
writing.
ritual. Rituals do work with higher energies, but they make it physical so that you can have a physical result of consciousness in matter. So
Awesome.
yeah, so writing down your dreams, same deal, you're
Well, and I write
validating.
down all the intuitive hits that occur to me. I find
Good.
out if I write them down, there's so many because I forget them otherwise.
Right,
And so
right,
if I take time to jot them down and then put them all together, there's so many that
right.
occur. There's
Yeah.
so many.
And then you can go back and review and see what's what. Yeah, it's good.
So Marcia has her hand up. So let's call on her next, even though I have her on mute. I'll take her off of mute. Marcia.
Okay. I'm looking at the book. Back in the beginning of the book, to the reader, it's Roman numeral page 17. And you said, I began to travel internationally, and a long-term involvement with the Japanese turned me inside out. They gave me a profound understanding of an ingenious way of ordering reality that was diametrically opposed to our Western way of thinking in almost every detail. I was really wondering I would like to know more about that. And is the book that? Is that what you learned in Japan?
No, it all fits together. What I found in Japan was that they're coming from a sense of collective self and learning to be individual, where we're coming from individual learning to be collective. So that what's interesting over there is that there's a very strong focus on, for instance, on presenting things in a particular form, like, do the tea ceremony or put the food on the plate in a certain arrangement, so that it's like the content is all merged and the form becomes the individuality. It's like the individual person is trying to learn how to express their own ideas. And I see that a lot with the young people. Whereas here, we're all individual, but we're trying to connect with each other and have, soul groups and things like that. So it was a way where it's kind of hard to describe it, but I learned to sink into that collective self. And then when I was in it, I realized that that's why the Japanese don't want to lose face. They don't do things to embarrass each other because everyone would feel it. You don't do that.
Oh.
You take care of each other, in the whole. And that's so different from us. Everything's very, very close there. And here, after I'd be in Japan for a month and be in that belongingness, I'd come back over here and everything seemed really far apart and cold.
I'll bet.
Yeah, it was a total weird physical, mental flip-flop. So it taught me a lot.
Well, I'm glad you explained that about the collective, because I even noticed that I love Japanese foreign films, and they always are so rich in symbolism and that collectiveness that I just get so into them and feel so connected to them, even watching a film. So let's go to page 40. This was a Dinah question on page 40, where you give this example of Rita, who comes to this. She has all these goals, all this going on in her life. But the last sentence says, she knows her intuition will tell her the sequence of tasks to be attended to today. So she relies on her intuition to actually tell her what to do in a given day. So Dinah said, how do we get there? How do we get to that point where our intuition is so sharp that we'll get up in the morning and know what to do that day?
I think it comes one by one, moment by moment, so you get up and you have to feel into each moment to see what has the most juice, what will entertain me the most, what feels like it has the most draw, that will engross me the most, whatever your criteria is for that moment, whether it's I want to work hard and get into something, or I want to release and dance, or go for a walk, or do each thing to completion and then feel satisfied and then be quiet and wait for the next thing to come. And that is the way I think we know the sequencing of things. And again, trusting the self to help you notice what the next thing wants to be.
Yeah. Thank you for that. That's good. Now, she also asked this question about the spatial holographic perceptors. What is that? Can you define that? We had no idea what it was.
That is my book, Leap of Perception, and where we're going from linear perception, A, B, C, D, and you get E,
Yeah.
to the spherical perception, which is you have a ball around you, and that is your present moment. It is your conscious mind. It is, everything's in there with you, and you never leave the center. And there's actually no outside world because the ball just keeps encompassing and moving. So there's actually nothing beyond you. Because if you think of it as beyond you, you're already there. So there's nothing outside you. And that changes your geometry inside of yourself about how you see the world. And holographic is the fact that within that ball, there are billions of little points of frequencies and realities. Each one, you could pay attention to it and it would turn into like a little bubble, and you could go into that ball and that would be a reality. So all your past moments, your past lives, all your potential realities, not future anymore. There's no future, no past. Everything's in the present moment with you. And you can go into any one you want and have any reality you want because it's all in the moment with you and nothing's outside you. That is spherical holographic perception. And it's not an easy concept to really get right away when you're saturated with linearness, so.
Well, I did Google it, and there are several scholarly articles on it. So I thought I'd do a little bit of research and find out more about it. So on page 84, she also pointed this out. It's your comment about compassion. Compassion produces the highest, most efficient level of intuition. And we'd like to explore that a little bit. What is it about compassion?
Compassion to me is an experience of that unity we talked about earlier, of that everything is connected to everything else, that I include all of you, you include me, everybody includes each other. We're part of each other's balls, And so when you start to have unity, you also have access to all knowledge. There's nothing outside you or separate from you because it's all there with you. Whatever you need to know, you put your attention on it and it comes up out of the background and you have it. If you take your attention out of it, it goes back onto the shelf and gets stored, So compassion is that experience really of the mutual inclusiveness. And you could call that love, because I think love is a very misunderstood word. It's kind of the glue of the universe. It's the connectedness of all things. So when you have access to everything and everything's interconnected, boy, you have direct knowing, And of course, intuition functions well when you see similarities. It stops functioning when you see differences.
Oh, that makes sense.
Yeah.
No, that does make sense. Absolutely. I have more questions, but if anyone else has one, please feel free to raise your hand, because I would think that everyone does. Oh, John Claude.
Yeah, Penny, I always thought I was in control until I, began to realize the ego, the power of the ego. And then suddenly began to realize, really, I'm not in control. And there's the ability that I feel that I've been brought into the world through the process of evolution to serve its purpose, not my purpose necessarily. Maybe the individual part that will get there, it knows what my abilities and my potentials and all that. So it knows how to work through me to bring out the best in me. And coming from that trust level of allowing that to happen, I guess the question is, I see myself that I really am not in control, but I mean in service to something bigger. And how do you see that? How do you see that?
Yeah, I think you're not in control, but you're in harmony. Yeah. And so you don't need to control anything. because you're part of the flow. You are contributing to the flow, everyone, the collective consciousness evolving together is the flow. You're in that.
Right.
So nothing has to work through you. You are the thing you're serving, and it's serving you. It's very mutual. So there's no lesser or more. The big thing is not greater than the individual. Do you see? Yeah,
I certainly feel that fabric you talk about is love.
it is. Yeah. And it's the belonging feeling.
Yes.
And yet the wonderful privilege of being able to have a pointed consciousness of being the particle for a little while, and still be able to experience the field. That's part of the gift that we have.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Debbie.
Okay, I'm going to play a little devil's advocate for a sec.
No.
That's good.
That kind of seems to be my role sometimes. But yeah, I get tripped up a little sometimes. When you, I understand about, feeling the connectedness and the compassion. So when, I guess what I got confused was when you said intuition doesn't work so well when you see differences. Now, for me, sometimes my intuition is sharpest when I'm sensing something off. Then it's kind of like kind of thing.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And so I think it's important to or I don't know, maybe, I guess I would like you to address it, that, not everything that in our world is kumbaya. Sometimes we have to deal with unpleasant realities.
Mm-hmm.
And I find that, I start off each day with an intention of being loving and coming from that place. But that's not an easy thing to do to actually accomplish.
Mm-hmm. Okay, there's a few things in what you said. I think that when you have clarity, real true clarity, it's very easy and transparency, it's very easy to see people who are not transparent, who are living with a filter over them, and that they can't see clearly. And it's just truth seeing truth, but yet you can see through that, what do you call it? Like a veil, right? Or their interference. You could, if you want to, you can see through it to feel who they are in their vulnerable self, in their true self. And then you can either make their fear real or you can make them real. So this is, I think, part of the soul teaching us to see truth, if that makes sense. And
well, that does, but that's what I'm trying. I guess that is what I'm trying to accomplish, is being able to, in the Course of Miracles, they tell you, to learn to see the people's light and not, but I guess, how do you get to that point where you can make that?
I think you have to see both.
clarity.
Actually, I think there's nothing wrong with seeing that some people are blocked, or they're afraid and they're being affected by old fear beliefs. Especially if you're a teacher or a healer, which we all are to some degree, you want to understand where the person's blockages are so that you can compassionately speak. It's almost like give them what they need and want, first of all, so that they can relax, then take them a little bit further and give them a sense about who they really are, genuinely, so that they relieve you, but to try to just be loving all day, that's a kind, like you said, kumbaya. It's kind of a unrealistic a little bit. You can be compassionate in a way that you always seek understanding. And I believe that understanding is a function of the heart.
Okay, now that's an easier concept to grasp.
Yeah. And then when you understand something, then you understand how people have their fears and vulnerabilities, but they also have at the same time their true self, their what they're built for, their life purposes and their abilities and genius and all of that. And then you can kind of work with both and sneak around the blocked stuff and go into the good stuff and validate them, you know. But yes, we're encountering, especially these days, this huge polarization because of all the subconscious fear coming to the surface now, because the acceleration of energy on the planet is causing the subconscious mind to empty, right? I mean, it can't stay down there anymore. It's all surfacing. And we're flooded with everybody's fear thoughts. And it's so easy to backslide. And you see this polarization of, like in politics, for instance, they're so divided that they can't even see each other's point of view. They're in two different realities. There's a huge bifurcation happening in the world right now. And, you know, people are waking up, you know, slowly to get to that higher level, but some people are dug in, you know, and that's causing, you know, it's going to cause a lot of trouble in the next few years. We just have to hold our own and keep growing and keep open and kind of help invite those other people into that state of mind and hope.
So would you say that one of the steps to learning how to reach that kind of clarity is just learning to be understanding?
Yes. Yes. And also, I'd say practicing speaking to people at the level that they can understand. Maybe that's a way we use our intuition, is to sense what can they absorb? You know, what are people ready for? You don't talk above them. You don't talk below them. You try to get, well, what are they actually asking for? You know, if they're afraid, if they don't feel recognized, recognize them, you know, give them what they need so they can relax. Then they can hear the next thing, right? It's just like, you know, when people are starving, they can't grow spiritually because they've got to eat first.
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah.
You know?
Okay, so I have a question. I've been
Yeah.
reading The New Feminine Brain, which is by Mona Lisa Schultz. Are you aware with that?
I know of her, yeah.
Developing, developing your intuitive genius.
Mm.
And it's been really interesting because it's what we are studying here, but it takes it to an even deeper level. So if we're experiencing something like anxiety or depression, we use that. It's our intuition talking to us and telling us something's wrong. And if we can get into that and give voice to that, it can prevent disease in the body. So it's kind of that mind-body connection. Can you expand on that a little bit? I thought it was really interesting.
Very interesting. Yeah, I think it relates a lot to the question earlier about emotion and you know, blocking things, blocking intuition. Anxiety is, again, another function of ego, saying that it has to be this way, or I'm in deep trouble, or I could be annihilated. You know, it's like, it's such an ingrained fear response of being separate and feeling in danger. And and I think we could identify different levels like anxiety or different kinds of stress or the engaged emotion that has to have things be one way. Those are contracted states, right? You can feel the contraction of it. It's like you inhale and you know, you don't have mobility of thought or even physical.
Right.
Right. And so you've got to be able to recognize those states, soften them, come back to center, breathe, and then recenter in your home frequency, which is the soul and the body vibe. And remember who you really are. I'm not that part that's so afraid. I'm this, and I do know what I'm doing. and just stay in it and strike the tuning fork of your tone, and get your ball saturated again with the way you like to feel. Then think about the issue. There's always a solution. And, like I said, things that are either new opportunities that maybe you're afraid to expand yourself that much, or losses where you're afraid to lose something, they're both opportunities for growth.
For
you know?
sure.
Right. It's always coming from the soul. It's always evolutionary if you look at it properly.
Okay. Does anyone else have one before I have more here, but does anyone else have one?
Yeah, I do.
Stephanie does.
This has to do with the practicality of being around people who are, those people stuck in the old, in their position, and who believe in their very soul that you are on the wrong track.
Yeah.
And that they have a responsibility to yank you around until you come to their point of view.
Right.
So how are we to defend ourselves from letting these people? I feel like they're just I feel like these are the spiritual and psychological vampires of my life.
Yeah. Yeah. Well,
Defend.
I think that part of it is just stop relating with them and separate out, even if they're family members, or if your job or your work is filled with those kinds of manipulators and narcissists, then you need to change and get to a different kind of vibration. So that's one thing. But, if you can't, sometimes I think you just have to say, I don't know what you're saying. It just doesn't work for me. It's not that you're right or wrong. This doesn't work for me. And make it factual,
Okay.
And so it's not offensive. And, I hear what you're saying, and it doesn't work for me. It's often what I excel, or I've said it once to somebody, well, this doesn't help me be a better person.
I like that.
So, but, and then if you resist them, even energetically, that validates them. They love that. Because then it feeds their sense of not being recognized. So then they try harder to have their own way.
Can you give an example of that? Maybe.
Yeah. I think a lot of times people who are trying to control reality, to control their own reality, have grown up by feeling very helpless or out of control, like they didn't feel protected by their parents, or they felt abandoned or something. So they feel then that they're alone in the world and they must control the way the world is, and it should obey the way they think it should be. So they need their outer reality to match the way they think it is. So they will try to control, or they try to charm and cajole and get people to agree with them, and then to do things the way they want them to do it. And if you don't do it exactly that way, they attack you. They'll go ballistic and then try to manipulate you back into that behavior that they can tolerate. And if you don't, they just reject you out of hand. You're gone. Because they don't really understand what love is. They think love means agreement. And so it's good to learn to recognize that personality disorder, or whatever they call it, because you can't get through to them usually. They'll outthink you, they'll manipulate you. Their ego is in control, and they have many clever methodologies. They'll distract you, they'll gaslight you, they'll do all kinds of things to remain in control. I say just leave it to them, and I go up my own way generally. I don't know if that's not an example exactly, but if you don't pay them much attention and don't validate them by either agreeing with them or not agreeing with them, they'll get bored with you, I think, generally, and they will just stop paying attention to you because it doesn't work.
Well, I love what you said. This doesn't help me be a better person. I am so using that. I can't wait to use that. Ah,
It is a really good one, and that's simple too, isn't it? It's easy to say.
Right, right.
Okay, so the question, these were some of the questions that we had talked about previously in our
Okay.
class that I typed up and I previously sent them to you.
Mhm.
So how did you yourself develop your own intuition?
Yeah, it was very gradual, no drama. I started off as an artist and went to design school. So I learned to use creative abilities in a very practical way. And I went through different kinds of design, from three-dimensional to graphics. And then I studied something in California called social design, where we learned to do stuff like redesign the elevator so people will talk to each other inside of it, or redesign the doctor-patient relationship, or the funeral, or, you know,
Wow.
so it was taking design principles and applying it to sort of social problems, and it was abstract, which really developed the intuition muscle, but I didn't know that's what I was doing at the time until I moved up to Northern California and they had classes in clairvoyance development, you know, and I said, oh, that sounds interesting, you know, so it's just one thing after another. And
It sounds like it,
yeah,
yes.
and then I worked with this group called the Center for Applied Intuition, and that's how I got sent to Japan. And it just, as soon as I decided that I was going to stop being a corporate art director and work with intuition and teach people how to develop their spirituality, I felt like I was like click, you know, that I had gone through all these developmental phases, but I felt like an imposter in a lot of those until I got to this, and then it clicked. Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, that's interesting.
Yeah.
Penny, what was the Center for Applied Intuition?
It
That
was a
sounds
group
very-
in San Francisco run
Mhm.
by a scientist from Stanford Research Institute, that he had developed a technique called intuitive consensus. He was a mathematician also, and he would get like a big question or series of questions from like a company in the Silicon Valley. And then he put together a team of intuitives. All, you know, we didn't work together, but he would give us each this set of questions. We would do readings on it. He would take all the answers, find the common elements or even some of the interesting details, and make a report out of it, which he sold to the companies from there. And
Wow.
that also
Wow.
helped me stay very grounded with, you know, my intuitive ability instead of getting kind of new agey and everything.
yeah.
And yeah, so it was an interesting time back then. You know, that was like, God, the late 70s or early 80s, I guess, in there.
Wow, I didn't even realize all that was going on back
Oh
then.
yeah, yeah.
Wow.
Lots of
Of course,
stuff.
it was in California.
Of course.
Right.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
I was in
And
Chicago.
the more you did this, Penny,
Yeah.
the more you realized and developed your own intuitive abilities,
Right.
the more your doubt diminished, so that you realized, I can trust. I am in touch with
Mhm.
my higher knowing.
That's
and I
right.
can- and it was a gradual thing.
A very gradual thing. And, you know, I had a tremendous amount of visionary dreams
Mhm.
as I was opening up. And I also had a lot of other spiritual teachers who would say to me, I've been told to help you as much as I can because you're going to, and I was like, what, you know, what, you know, like, I don't know what you're talking about. And, you know,
These
so
are real spiritual teachers, not
yeah,
Real, not
Right.
spirit guides.
Yeah.
no, real people who, yeah. And so it was kind of like sort of programmed. And then I had a lot of people who gave me past life readings of detailed lives. I mean, like Akashic record lives with all the books I'd written and everything. And I went and found record of all of them. And it was like, it was like a download, you know, early on in my life. So it kind of primed me for rapid, I don't know, uptake,
What?
you know.
Did
and-
you have intuitive experiences when you were young? Were you
Nope.
aware? So you weren't even aware that
I grew
you
up
had
on a
this
farm
ability.
and had animals and, you know, rode horses and
Yeah.
regular old childhood.
Mhm.
Just artistic though, you
Yeah.
know. Yeah. Yeah, I think
Okay.
things are timed, you know, that things are encoded in us. And at certain times we get a new level of knowledge and things progress,
Mhm.
you know. So I've really watched that over the years and I really trust it now that
Well, it sounds like trust is key. I think
it really
that's
is.
the,
Yeah.
so how do we get to that? Developing that trust.
You
That
have to
we were-
decide. You can't be proven to you, really. You can have signs and signals, you know, but if you still are in your left brain, you will keep distrusting even that.
Wow. So
And-
that's a left brain thing.
Yeah, and I think you have to at some point say, look, a part of what I did, I remember, was I wasn't going to say the word God until I understood what it meant. And then I thought, well, all the religions of the world, how come they had wars over this? This is stupid. Like, what's the core truth in all the religions? And I was looking for the common elements. And that started when I was like, I think 12 or 13. I started thinking that way. And, you know, so I think everything I did from that point on, I was really looking for this synthesis, but I didn't know that's what it was then. You know, it just
And
trying
it
to,
occurs gradually over time. Yeah,
Yeah,
I can
yeah.
see that.
Mhm.
Definitely. I think we've all can relate
Right.
to that.
And I think, you know, when you hear truth, when somebody explains something to you and it really feels accurate, it's just like, it feels comfortable. Like you just kind of, you know, you don't worry about it. It just sinks in. And I had that a lot, you know, when I was hearing things from different people. Some I was, yeah, but that's not quite the whole truth. They've got part of it, but not all of it, you know, or something. And I think that's part of the trust too,
Mhm.
is knowing that something's got something valuable there, but it's not quite, complete.
So, and a lot of these questions you've already touched upon a little bit, so we might expand a little further.
Okay.
How do you tap into intuition in the moment rather than after the fact? Because it's really easy after the fact to say shoulda, woulda, coulda,
Yeah.
and not recognize it.
Yeah. I think the best way is to stop talking, get very quiet, get centered, be in your body, and stop your internal dialogue. So, because the left brain is always about language. And as long as you're in the chit chat and the yes buts and everything, you know, you're still focused in your left brain. When you stop talking, you can get quiet and then you start to shift more to the middle and you can start to allow knowledge from the unknown or the, you know, the part of the what's the collective unconscious.
Collective unconscious.
Right, that comes in for you. And then it's more neutral. It's not, the left brain isn't voting on it, you know, and you can have that arise very simply. It almost, intuitions, when they're good, they just kind of occur. You know, they don't hit you
Easily,
in the head.
effortlessly, right?
Right.
Yeah. So do we need to be able to really deeply meditate to get this information, or is it more of a, you know, just more of that stream of consciousness? Do we need to really, we talk about meditation a lot and how challenging that is for a lot of people.
Yeah.
And so is meditation, how is that linked to intuition?
Well, I don't really meditate that much myself, but I have.
Oh, Kathy loves to hear that.
But I have practiced for many years about getting centered and quiet and really
centered and quiet. How's that
and
different
still
than meditation?
and open. But I don't take it on for long, like 20 minutes. I'm just like sit there and I get quiet And then I ask a question, and then I wait, and then I get some kind of impression, and often I did practice when I was opening up I kept journals, and I would go out and I'd ask myself, what is prayer? And then it would write, it is blah, 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 and some part of me would answer these questions. And it wasn't yes or no questions. It was like, what's the dynamic behind, or how do I understand this?
Those kinds of questions, like what is
Yes.
prayer?
Yeah.
Julia Cameron would probably agree with you, right?
Yeah,
Julia
yeah.
Cameron.
Exactly. Exactly. Yeah.
So how
And
do we overcome barriers to hearing our intuition?
well, I think maybe you probably have an idea that you should hear it. So you might get rid of the should and allow it to come any way it wants to come through any of the senses, which could be vision, voice, vibration. It can be sound. It can be smell. It could be, taste. Like, this smells fishy. Or I got a sour taste in my mouth about
Yeah,
this.
we were talking about that.
Right? Yeah. So, but notice what you're receiving, and then what does that mean? What's the sense of things?
And since we are all one, we should be able to get this wisdom from trees and
That's
go out
right.
in nature
Mhm.
and talk to our trees and
Mhm.
animals
Mhm.
and expect to get information. Is that accurate?
I think so. Yeah. You have to get quiet, but the animals, the birds, all kinds of things occur in your reality each day, and they're like dream symbols.
I always look them up too, because I
Uh-huh.
think they do have messages, and the Native Americans have such wonderful wisdom
Mhm.
related to animals. And so I think
Right. Right.
again, it's noticing, being aware, and then being
Right.
centered on
Right.
it. Yeah. And the
Exactly.
senses, I was experimenting. I was exercising at the outdoor fitness center, and there was a blind man next to me. So I thought, I'm going to close my eyes and see what it feels like. And it was really interesting because all the other senses are so much sharper when
Mm.
the eyes are closed. It's like
Mhm.
everything, the birds and everything were
Mhm.
so much more vibrant to me when I closed
Yes.
my eyes.
Yes. Yeah. I think we do go down through the brain, the visual center, and then you go into hearing, and then you go into tactile, and then you go into like the reptile brain senses, which is smell is the lowest one, I think.
Right, right.
Closest to the reptile brain. And
Yeah.
odors can take you into entire realities. Yeah. So the deeper you go, sometimes the more direct it is. Sometimes.
Okay. Health issues. How do
Mhm.
you use your intuition to handle health issues such as having a muscle pain in your shoulder, pain in your back, or whatever?
You mean to know
Wonder
why it's there?
what the source of that pain is.
Ah,
Can you intuitively find out the source of that pain that's in your wherever?
mhm. Um, Well, I think you can ask yourself, what level of severity is this? Is this a precursor to some disease, or is it just because, like I was writing a lot. And so every time I used my mouse, I was raising my shoulder. I didn't realize it, but I had this terrible, crink I couldn't turn my head to the left. And then I realized I watched myself, I saw it. And I thought, well, okay, it's not that serious. I can get some massage and get it worked out. Other things I think you understand are something you need to really, it's a little more serious
Dig
or a
into.
precursor.
Yeah.
Other things I think you can, like sometimes with a headache, or with even I have sometimes tinnitus a little bit, like a ringing. And if
Mhm.
I place my attention on it, it gets loud. If I take my attention off and get distracted, it just goes away. So attention can often relieve pain, the lack of it, the moving of it or something. I don't know.
Good.
I think there are a lot of ways to
I,
work with
I
the body.
yeah. So the next question that was on the list is, what is the relationship between intuition and collective consciousness? And I think we did touch upon that a little bit.
I think collective consciousness is the source for intuitive knowing.
Yeah, that's what, yeah.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah.
And then tell us about your newer teachings, such as your frequency and transparency. You talked about transparency, and that
Yeah.
sounds really interesting. So
Yeah.
tell us more about that.
Well, of course, Frequency is the book that follows Intuitive Way, and it's really about the whole art and science, I guess, of working with your own vibration and vibration in the world, and seeing things as interconnected by energy and frequency.
So how was that different from the intuitive way? Does it take it to another level?
Oh yeah, much more complicated level, and it's all about energy and working with vibration and not losing yourself by merging with other kinds of vibrations that aren't your own, and it's probably the best-selling book I have. It's still selling really a lot. And then the next one is Leap of Perception, which is all about these are all about transformation, right? These are,
well, yeah, and that's what
right?
our interest is, in transformation.
And it's not just that we're changing. It's like we are having an entirely different reality starting to occur because we're starting to have an entirely different kind of perception. And that means we have an entirely different understanding of what our self is and how reality works. It's profound. So the leap of perception is the change from linear thinking and perception into the spherical and holographic. And what that will do to the way we think about certain things. Like I think I have a thing in I forget which book it's in, but where I just go through, well, what will marriage be like when you think this way? What would education be like? What would, all kinds of things be like? And then the subtitle on Leap of Perception is the transforming power of your attention, not intention.
Oh,
Attention skills are in the present moment. It's not futurizing at all. It's right now. How do you work with your attention to do different things? And so that's a really important book. It's won a bunch of awards. And then after that, the next level or step was transparency, which is, so let's clear ourselves. Well, how do we do it? What's in the way? What happens when you start to become very clear? You see through things when you're transparent, and other people can see you. You're exposed. Nothing's hidden. You're the soul. There's no point in hiding. And there's a whole different kind of reality that starts happening when you become more and more transparent. And so honesty is normal, all kinds of things. And I think it's a good book because it really changes the way you think about protecting yourself and things like that. There's no more
really
hiding.
good. Wow. Well, this has been really informative. We only have a couple minutes left. I don't want to keep us over. It's 3 hours ahead in Florida. So
What was the name of that book?
Transparency.
Oh, okay. Thank you.
Yep. And I always forget the subtitle. It's like seeing through to our expanded human capacity. That's the
that
subtitle.
sounds interesting.
Oh,
Yeah.
Are there any closing thoughts before we typically, Penny, end with gratitude, which I want to make sure we do? And so any closing comments before we complete with gratitude? Cynthia.
Yes, first of all, thank you so much, Penny. This really was wonderful.
Oh, you're so welcome.
And if we wanted to be in touch with you or perhaps work with you for a session, how do we go about doing that?
Just go to my website, which is my name, pennypeirce.com. And in the mentoring section, there's all kinds of information about how to do it and what it is and all of that.
Okay. And we can let you know that we are part of this group if we would
Oh,
want
yeah,
to. So
yeah.
you would.
Absolutely.
Okay, great.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Well,
Parting words. I don't know. I'm so happy that you are all doing this so consistently and seriously. And
So am
the-
I mean,
you
it's
know,
unbelievable how
yeah.
committed this group is. I
Yeah.
mean, really committed. Once a week, we are together
Wow.
for a year and a half now. And it did
Wow.
start with COVID, I mean,
Yeah.
we were brought together and we found that we enjoy it so much, sharing experiences, that it's like we never want to stop. We
Yeah,
keep going, how
that's
can we go
true.
deeper? How can we go
It's true.
deeper? And it's so refreshing and so wonderful for me to find a like-minded group to do this with. I mean, I'm selfishly so happy for myself because not everyone in my life shares this enthusiasm.
No, I know. That's the thing. To have spiritual friends is really important right now. We need the what's the word, reaffirmation, or the whatever, I can't think of the word, to help us stabilize.
Mhm. Yeah.
It's easy to doubt when you get around a lot of people who aren't in the
Mhm.
don't even know what you're talking about, and they think it's silly.
Mhm. Yeah, that's right. And they have no idea.
Right.
Well, thank you for your generosity of your
Yeah.
time. We are so
Yes.
grateful. You just shared so much wisdom with us. And
Right.
wow, what a blessing. What a true blessing to have you with us tonight. Thank you. Thank you so much from the
Oh, you're
bottom
so
of my
welcome.
heart.
You're so welcome.
Anyone else? Gratitude.
Yeah.
Thank
Well,
you.
I just say ditto. Really incredible, Penny, that you
Yeah.
came and you worked with us and your generosity. I know I speak for all of us, just like Diane said.
Yeah.
We're profoundly grateful to you. Thank you
Well-
so much for giving us your time in this manner. It means a great deal.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Kathy.
Yeah.
Oh, go ahead, Penny. Finish.
No, I was just
before-
going to say, I feel, it's the same way to have people to talk to, it's great.
I just wanted to say, there's that old Marshall McLuhan thing. Those of you that are old enough to remember, the medium is the message, and Penny, just you were the message. You were
Oh,
the,
thank you.
your aura, your persona, whatever a good word is, that's what made it so different from reading your book. And so, really good. Thank you.
Oh, thank you for that.
It's your frequency.
Yeah. Yeah.
Stephanie.
I want to thank you very much for all the your wonderful perceptions. And again, I want to tell all of our group how much I love you guys. Just do. But it was such a pleasure. Thank you so much.
Yeah.
And Marcia, is your hand raised? It was raised and I wasn't sure if that was previously or it's raised for now.
No, that was from before.
Okay. Did you want to say anything? You don't have to.
I'm really interested in what you were saying about Japan, and I've been sitting here doing Googling trying to find out more about it.
Okay.
Oh, she's fascinated by Japan.
All right.
Anyone else before we sign off? Debbie.
Yes, I just want to thank you, Penny, for coming and speaking to us. And I think about what I learned from the intuition book, and it just seems to me like it's learning that to trust our inner knowing, but I'm fascinated. I cannot wait to learn more about the clarity and the frequency. So thank you so much.
You're welcome. If you do the next book, I'm happy to come back.
Oh, great.
Oh, wow. What
anytime.
a wonderful offer.
Yeah.
Thank you
Great.
so
Thank
much
you.
for
Thank
that,
you so
Penny.
much.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank
Good.
you, Patty, for your openness and sharing. Appreciate it.
Oh, yeah. Thanks for the good questions.